Good morning, welcome back to the channel. Today in the tiny kitchen we're going to do step one of our pizza rolls, and that's the crust. So this is a yeasted crust. Ordinarily with a pizza crust you could do this and let it rise for an hour in a warm spot and then proceed. We're going to do a slow rise on this. So what we're going to go ahead and do is put this all together and get it in the bowl, cover it, and then it'll go in the refrigerator and it will slowly rise overnight. But the slow rise gives it a richer flavor, and it gives you a nice, really delicate crust, which is good on a roll like what we're doing here. So it's basically like a cinnamon roll, but it's a pizza. So let's run down what we've got here. Obviously we have our flour. This is 00 pizza flour. 512 grams separated in two here. That's about 4 cups of the flour. So about 4 cups of the 00 pizza flour here, and then we have 1 large egg. Still need to grab my salt. I need 6 grams of salt, or about a teaspoon. We've got a cup and a quarter, 1 1/4 cups of milk. I have goat's milk here. You can use whole milk. Then I have 48 grams, or a 1/4 cup of sugar. I just have it in here. I didn't measure it in there. We have a 1/4 cup of water. You want this at 110 degrees. Mine's getting a little cool right now, so I'm going to have to throw it in the zapper for a minute. Not a minute, because that would make it way too hot, but we'll go for about 15 and throw this thermometer back in there. And then 4 tablespoons, or 57 grams of butter. I have salted butter. This is Kerrygold. Whatever you have is good. I think that's it. So to start with, we want to get this water to around 110. And let's see where we are at. And then we want to dissolve our sugar in there. So we'll mix our sugar in there, and then, I did forget one thing. You need 1 packet of the active dry yeast, not the instant yeast, not the rapid rise, just the regular active dry. This is Fleischmann's. I know there's other brands out there. This is the most common brand we have in our area, and I've been using it for a long time, so it's just my go-to. I know there's other ones out there that are good too. So for this part, we aren't going to be doing any kind of like rolling or any of that stuff. So we are just under 110, so that should be good enough. So we want to dump our sugar in. And then we want to go ahead and add our yeast in there, and that will proof if it's still good. Okay, so just kind of stir that up, and then we'll let that sit for a few minutes and proof. Okay, I want to go ahead and soften this butter up some. You can probably go ahead and just get it really soft. I just don't want to get it super hot because it's going in with the egg. So we'll crack our egg in this bowl here. Maybe. Oh. Okay. Okay, so that got pretty close to just totally liquid. We'll go ahead and whisk that to get it all smooth and liquid. Cook our egg. We'll go ahead and just whisk this into the butter. Okay, so we got our butter and our milk here. Then we're going to go ahead and just whisk it together with the egg in here. Okay, while we're waiting on the proofing here, the recipe calls for 420 to 480 grams of all-purpose flour. So this is adjusted to 448, and then that extra would be this here. So this is the minimum the recipe calls for, and this is the extra. You may or may not need to add this depending on humidity and temperature and all the other variables that come into play with that. That's why it's in a separate bowl. If you don't use all of it, go ahead and just leave it in the bowl, put a piece of plastic over it, set it aside, and you can use that when you start rolling it out tomorrow. So we're getting some foam in our yeast here. And we've got our salt. We'll go ahead and just whisk this in here so we don't forget about it. Okay. Should have got it before so you could see the difference, but we've got, there's our foamy. Oh, you can smell it. If you were here, you could smell it. So it's foamed up, it's good, it's showing that it's going to do its thing. So we'll go ahead and add that in here. And then we want to go ahead and get all the sugar that didn't stir in. Not all of it's going to mix in because it's a lot of sugar to that small amount of water. But that's okay because we can just add it into this and it will mix in. Okay, so now we are ready to move to the flour. And you're only going to be able to use this whisk for so long here. I like to get to a battery stage and then I'll move on from the whisk. So we're going to add this in about a cup at a time. You don't have to be precise. I'm using the 1 cup measuring cup because it's the easiest thing I have to scoop flour in with. So we'll go ahead and just start there. Okay, and so here at a couple of cups in, you can see it's getting to be like a really thick almost like a frying batter. And it smells really yeasty and amazing right now. So 2 cups or so of flour is probably about as far as I would take it with a whisk. If you have a particularly robust whisk, you could probably take it further. If you wanted to throw this on the stand mixer and use the kneading hook, I'm sure that would be okay. I haven't tried that with this particular recipe. Okay, so now we'll just stir this in. And about 3 cups, you start transitioning from that batter stage into a really soft dough. Keeping an eye on my battery there because, as I said, I've been in here. Okay, so we're down to about a cup left in there, a little more. So we'll just go ahead and add the rest of that in there. So that's all of the big bowl of flour that we have added in now. And we'll see what it looks like. And the additional 64 grams, that's roughly half a cup. It's 30 some grams per quarter cup. Oh, so it's 32 grams per quarter cup, so the 64 grams should be exactly half a cup. So obviously you're not going to add that a cup at a time. So we've got a really, really sticky but mostly unified dough. Into the red. So I'm going to go ahead and set up here for the next step, and I got to get out my pastry mat and that, so we'll be right back. Okay, so let's see if I can get this in the camera. This view here. Okay, I've got my mat laid out here. We'll use this again tomorrow when we roll it out, so I've got little bits of flour on here. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and bring this over here. We're going to flour generously here. Like I said, this is still really sticky, which means it's going to take some flour. And then we'll just turn this out. And you can see it is really gooey. It's still sticking to the bowl. Come on out of there. So we want to go ahead and work in some extra flour. And hopefully we have enough out and don't need to get extra, but it needs what it needs. It might take more than you have ready, so if you have exactly what you need for the recipe, then you should probably go ahead and get more before you start. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and flour your hands. And just kind of, we're not really kneading it yet. We're just kind of folding it around, working this flour into it. If it sticks to your mat, just kind of rub some flour at it and it will pull that away. It's not really firm enough to properly knead yet. So we want to just kind of work it around, pat it down. Okay, Keep your flour spread out. It's feeling like it might not take as much of the flour as I was expecting that it would. Okay, and now once you get it to where you can start kneading it, you want to knead this for 10 to 15 minutes till it's nice and smooth. If it starts getting sticky, just add a little more flour. And so you take it, fold it, turn it, fold it, add a little extra flour on there where it's sticky. If you keep a spoon in here, you can sprinkle extra flour on here without sticking your hands into this. That way you're not contaminating that flour, and if you don't use it all, you can hold on to it for rolling out later or using it for something else if you have other things going on. But if you get your doughy hands in there, then it's pretty much done. Okay, so get all the dough off of my hands here, the little bits that have stuck. Okay, you take your bowl, go ahead and spritz this thing with some oil here. I'm using some extra virgin olive oil. If you have your grease sitting out and you think you'll just go ahead and use that because it's handy, don't. You would think it would work just as well, but it doesn't. At least not on a slow rise in the fridge, because grease, when you put it in the fridge, hardens. And it doesn't lubricate the dough the same way as the oil does. So when you go to get it out of the bowl, it's not as easy as you would hope. Okay, so you want to just kind of roll this a little bit in the bowl just so that it gets a little of that oil on there so it doesn't stick to the bowl as it rises, which it shouldn't because there's oil on it, but that's how I've always been taught, is to roll it in the oil so that it's coated. I've always just assumed that so it doesn't stick to the bowl. Maybe there's some other good reason to do it. The irony is that I moved all that stuff out of the way by putting it right in the way. Okay, so now I need to put a piece of plastic over this, which I have in this ultra handy 3,000 foot roll. Why are you way over there? Not sure how the little blade thing moves all over the place on here, but it does. Okay. Okay, so you don't have to be super concerned with the plastic. It's not like a custard. You don't have to like press it on the surface or anything. You just cover it up. Now this is ready to go. Ordinarily you'd put this in a warm spot for about 45 minutes to an hour until it's doubled. I'm not going to do that. I am going to take a moment to massage my chocolate frosting and see how it's looking. Yeah, it's coming back together good. Okay, so now that's going to rise overnight in the refrigerator. Bring you back up here. And after that, we will roll it out. It'll actually be pretty much the exact same size as this mat when it's all rolled out. And we will fill it, roll it up, and slice it. And we will make some awesome pizza rolls. For you, that'll be like in a couple seconds. I have, I have to travel through time in the normal fashion, so I will be waiting until tomorrow. And I don't have much going on tomorrow. I have the pizza rolls, finish the frosting, make a cake, put a cake together, possibly make more cookies, and film some stuff, because that's what we do here. So, I will see you there, and for you that'll be like now. And boom, just like that, you're back, and it's tomorrow. So, for me, that was a long time. For you, that was like 1.2 seconds. Bear with me today. I've got some changes on the camera, one of which being the screen is not on all the time, trying to get it to stop overheating when it gets hot in here. So I'm going to have to poke at it and see where my frame is at. I also changed the setting from wide to closed in a little bit, kind of do away with some of the background to get a little better perspective on the video. So bear with me on the first video here with these settings. So anyway, where we left off yesterday was putting the crust in the fridge to slow rise. So I did do some film on the first version of these pizza rolls. So I'll probably be cutting some of that in here also. So some of the process I'll probably just go through briefly instead, because I did a lot more of that. I just didn't show how the crust was made. Off camera, I went ahead and shredded my cheese. I just did that in the food processor. Pro tip, if you freeze your cheese, it will shred a little easier in there. If you forget to cut it to size so it'll fit in there before you freeze it, makes it a little more of a challenge. So anyway, that is half and half mozzarella and Munster. Also have my sauce ready to go. This is boiled down, reduced, which on the first version was not. So you can probably see that is a little thicker than the sauce we did in the first version of this, which is one of the issues that I had with that. The thin sauce just kind of disappeared in there. You got the flavor, but no real sauce sensation in eating it. So let's take a look at this crust here. Let me see. Hopefully some of that I was actually in the frame. Let's take a look. So you just saw this, so you can see how much bigger this is in here. So you've got a nice puff on here. It's firm with just a little bounce back. And I'm going to go ahead and set that out here. Get out the mat. As I said, and as I showed in the original first version of this. Come back here, runaway rubber band. When this is at its proper size, it will be essentially the same size as this mat, which is about 24 by 14. The measurements don't go all the way to the edges on the mat, so it's I'm going to go ahead and just grab out my measuring cup. Last time I did this, I used about 1/4 cup throughout the process of getting this out to shape. So I'm just going to go ahead and use a 1/4 cup scoop some out and get it ready here. And just set this aside. I may need more of that, I may not. I also grabbed some actual like meant for pizza pepperoni this time. The pepperoni I used last time was like pepperoni sticks, which tastes the same, but is not the same texture. If you've ever eaten those, you might have noticed they're a little stiffer. And that's part of the process when you're making those. But I was just doing that to have the flavor in there for the first test run on those. So just kind of tap this around a little bit and see how it moves. We got one spot here that's sticking a little. Okay. That's what I want to hear. Is it coming loose? Why is this spot sticking? Okay. So there is our dough. We will go ahead and pick that back up because I forgot to sprinkle some flour first. And we will just sprinkle a bit on top. And this is going to be stiff right out of the refrigerator. That's okay. Work it a little bit. It's not going to go very far until it gets a chance to kind of come up to temperature a little bit and relax. But that's okay at this point. The fastest way to get this up to temperature and get it to start relaxing is to spread it out some. Spread that mass out on the surface. Come on, screen. And let's come down here so you can kind of see what we're doing. So when you spread this out, you thin it out, and it lets it get up to temperature a lot faster. It's actually pretty plastic right now for being fresh out of a 36-degree refrigerator. But as I explained in the first video doing this, if you see, you pull it out and it starts sucking itself back in. That means it's at its elastic limit. That doesn't mean it's done. It's not going to stretch anymore. That just means you need to stop now and let that relax. Any stretching that you do beyond that is you're just going to tear stuff instead of stretching it. So just move to another spot, go till it starts to pull itself back, and then stop. And that just needs to relax for a few minutes. And the main thing when you're rolling or pressing this out, you can use a rolling pin to do this if you prefer. The main thing is to stop when it gets to that, let it rest for a few minutes, and pay attention to your thickness on the slab. If you start noticing, like here you have a thin spot and here's a thick spot, instead of pulling here, you want to try and work from the thick spot towards the thin spot, because when you get this all out to the edges, you're going to want it to be pretty consistent in thickness. The other thing is to not neglect flipping this up and checking, making sure you still have some flour under there, because this is pretty good for right now. I do have a couple of spots that are starting to get just a little sticky, but it is going to incorporate more of this flour as you work it out. And if it gets that flour absorbed underneath it, and you don't get more flour down there, it can start sticking to the mat. So you just want to, as you work it, when you pick it up, as you can see, it's pretty well incorporated the flour that was under it. So just really light dusting here. We're not trying to get another cup and a half of flour into it or anything. We just want to keep it so that it doesn't stick. So you don't want to just grab and yank at the edge. You want to kind of work, pull, pick it up so that it's stretching throughout the material, not just right at the edges. Otherwise, what you'll have is really thin around the edges and all that bulk still right in the middle. And again, when it starts pulling back when you let go, that means you need to give it a break. Let it rest for a minute. And the big difference, one big difference anyway, in This version is, I've got these individual baking dishes to use this time, instead of trying to do them in the pan, the 9x13 like cinnamon rolls. That worked out okay. The biggest issue was trying to separate the rolls. You'd end up with one that was little and one huge one, because the way they were in the pan, they would rise differently depending on how they ended up in there, and getting them all perfectly arranged in that pan was not as easy as it would seem. This is resting pretty quickly. It's pretty warm in here. It's not super hot, but it's warm. If it's a little cool, it's going to take a little longer for it to relax. So say it's 65 in your kitchen, you might have to walk away from this for 5 minutes. If you come back, just give it a little tug. If it just pulls right back in, a little rebound is okay. What you're watching for is like you pull this out and then it just pulls right back to where it started from. Then walk away, give it a little more time. It might take 5 minutes, it might take 10 minutes, but just give it a little bit of time and come back and see how it's doing. When it's ready to go, it will let you know it's ready to keep moving. Okay, so I've got 2 changes to make on the sauce. The first, as I said before, I've reduced this down by half. So each cup of sauce will have essentially 2 cups of sauce, as compared to the first version of this. So it will be more dense flavor wise, but I'm also going to up it to 1.5 cups. So you can definitely see, if you can see, let me see if you can see. Yeah, you can see. You can definitely see this is a thicker sauce. I'm having to actually pipe it out of here into this cup. And I used 1 cup last time, and I'm using 1.5 cups of the reduced sauce this time. So flavor wise, it should be about the same as having 3 cups of sauce, but reducing it will keep it from being really liquidy. And if it's too wet, then what happens is your dough becomes gummy and wet, and it's just not the ideal, which is why I kept the amount of sauce down last time. And hydration wise, it was okay. It didn't end up getting soggy or anything, but it did kind of lack that actual texture of the sauce that you want in the finished product. Okay, so we'll set this over here. And what one do I want to use? This one. Okay, so now what we want is we want to leave about a spatula's width, 1 inch or so of space along the top. Doesn't have to be exact, but I'm just going to go ahead and do myself a guideline here, just so I can have a goal post. And when you dump it all on here, it looks like a huge amount of sauce. But you will find as you start to spread it that it actually takes a fair bit of sauce to cover the surface of the rolls here. Okay, so this is going to be as exact or as rustic as you want it to be. It's up to you. Generally, the more consistent this is, the more consistent your rolls are going to be also. So you want to try and get an even coat over the whole thing. But, you know, nobody's going to come along with a micrometer and spank you if you have one spot that's slightly thinner, or, you know, this is a rustic sauce. This is made from scratch, and it was broke down into a sauce with an immersion hand blender. So, I mean, you do have chunks of tomatoes and vegetables, and the basil in here is not precisely, so you're going to have spots that are different anyway. But the point is that you can spend all day standing here trying to get everything exact. So it's up to you to decide for yourself just how much time you're going to spend on stuff like getting that sauce perfect. So now I'll bring this over here so it's ready. Get this out of my way so it's out of my way. And now I'll just have a peel. Okay. And if you were interested, this is Primo Taglio is the brand on this. Oh. That is, I have to say, the initial scent out of the bag was not exactly pleasant, but it is actually really good smelling stuff once. And I've found that pretty common. I'm not sure what it is, but like, I found that a lot with lunch meat. You open the bag and it smells like something that you wouldn't even want to have in your garbage can. But then after that initial wave of smell comes out of there, it smells just fine. I don't know. Some artifact from the packaging process or so. I don't really know. And I'm just laying these out like this for right now. I have a feeling that it's not going to cover the entire thing because I'm almost halfway through them and I only have 2 rows. But this will let me get them all out here and assess exactly how much coverage I'll be able to get. And we can evaluate from there and determine. So, yeah, I think we're going to end up doing something more like this. And these aren't going to have to be full coverage because remember, these are going to be rolls this way. So as long as each roll has a fair portion of pepperoni in it, you're going to have that pepperoni coverage. So if it doesn't go all the way through it, that's going to be okay. Okay, so I'm back. And anyways, what I was going to say is if you have a pack like this that doesn't have great coverage and you wanted to be like a more dense coverage, what you could do is like cut these into quarters and spread those around. I don't think that this is actually going to translate into poor coverage. Let me see where we're at again. Because it's actually got pretty good coverage. And like I said, when you roll this up, you're going to have the individual rolls cut out of this. It's not like you're going to have this as a slice. It's going to be this is what you have in your roll. So I think I'm going to make that over there because it's got a little more. So, and again, you could spend hours trying to precisely locate all the exact spots that these need to be, but it's really not going to gain you much as far as benefit versus time spent. So now what we will do is open up our cheese and kind of work this around a little bit and make sure these are mixed. The downside to the cheeses that I've picked is that they're both white, but they've got very different flavor. So you can see the little flecks of orange in here. That's the coating they have on the outside of the Munster. So being that they're both white, it's kind of hard to really be sure that they're blended well. And because these were frozen, shredded, and then refrigerated, they are kind of clumping a little bit. That's okay. Just be gentle with it and spread it out. And it doesn't have to be exact. You can come back and spread them around after you get the cheese on the rolls. In fact, you're going to have to, because unless you can do a little better job of spreading it. The ratio I'm going with, I'm going to go ahead and stick with from last time, is about 2/3 inside, and then the rest will go on top of the rolls. And I'm just kind of eyeballing that. I'm not measuring to get that ratio. I'm just kind of going by eye there. I don't know how well that spatula would work for this, and it's gooey, so I'm gonna... What in the world are we doing out here? Oh! Okay, we got new neighbors and they're getting their garbage cans today, so... Sounded like they were out there knocking down the neighborhood or something. So pardon the noise in the background if you can hear all that banging and clattering and stuff. That's the dumpsters being thrown at their house from the back of a flatbed. That's not the worst way to spread the cheese, I suppose. Now, you can go ahead and buy shredded cheese to use for this. It'd be a lot easier and a lot less time consuming. The reason I don't is because I can't find shredded Munster anywhere. And it's an absolute must-have cheese for pizza for me. Okay, so now we've got that spread out. I've got to get all this goo off my hand here. Let's see. And I have my oven on and preheating to 350 degrees. You don't have to do that quite yet if you're just making these, but I have to... While this, between this step and the next step, I have a cake to make, so... I went ahead and started it because fortunately the cake bakes at the same temperature. So now what you want to do is make sure that you can see what we're doing. You want to just take the edge here and just fold it over. And I just realized a mistake. This first row of pepperoni, you want to leave it back about 1 inch from the edge, because see what it's doing here is it's trying to straighten out. You're folding a pepperoni and it's trying to straighten itself back out along this edge, which isn't a big problem. It's just would be a little easier if it wasn't right at the edge like that. So if you're doing this at home, keep that in mind. Okay, now just kind of roll this. It's not going to roll perfectly like a cinnamon roll because the pepperoni is going to resist, and the cheese is more clumpy than the filling in a cinnamon roll. But same basic principle. You just want to roll it, keep it as neat and tight as you can. It's going to resist, like I just said, but just do your best. Tuck your end in as you roll so that you don't get a big weird flag at the end. And this is what this strip at this end is for, so that you have a clean strip. And you want it wide because as you roll, the sauce and the cheese are pushing along. So about half of that strip is now covered with sauce and cheese, and the rest is what is going to close these rolls on the edge. Okay, so now that that roll is rolled, I'm going to go ahead and roll it just a little more and see if I can lift this and move it back for the next step on this. And that is close enough. I can use these lines now to guide my cuts. Okay. Okay, don't need to be super exact on this, just spritz and swipe. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and grab a good sharp knife. This isn't a cutting safe mat, so I'm gonna use it to cut. And just be careful. As I get to the bottom, I'm gonna go very slowly and not slice through my silicone mat here. And then as you pick it up, roll it the way that it's rolled. That will help you pick it up without unrolling it. Now these have to rise again. Trying to think if I have anything in the refrigerator I'm going to need for the cake, and I'm going to set this aside and we'll come back and we'll put some cheese on top of these when they're ready to go in. Don't try and just chop through this. You want a slicing motion as you go through so that you're cutting the dough and the pepperoni in there. If you're wondering why I only did 6, it's because I ran out of table space here, so I'm going to do these 6, and then I will grease the oil the other ones there. And these bowls are an experiment in and of themselves. I don't know how well these will work out for doing this, if they're just going to be too big or not. My main concern is that they're so big that these will like bloom out and fall apart, but we will see. That's half the fun of experimental baking, finding out how well things work. And I'm gonna have to start from scratch on the bake time on these, because these are gonna bake faster than having them all together in a 9x13. But they probably won't bake a whole lot faster. So I'll probably start about a half an hour and see what they look like. Last time I ended up at 55 minutes in a 9x13. These will probably be more in the 45-minute range, but they may surprise me and cook a lot faster because of these. So I'm going to start early. And keep an eye on them. So if you're not making a cake between these steps, you want to go half hour, 45 minutes of rise time. And I'll be probably right in the middle of making a cake video when these are perfect, and I'll have to try and show you in that video and then cut it out and put it back in this video. And okay, so there we are. Those will have to rise. Somehow I ended up like half an inch off on that one. This half should be on top of this one, but this needs to flip over anyway. So now we will let those rise. While these ones are rising, I have a cake to make, and that's another video. So we will come back to this. Why is that? Oh. My spritzer's got oil. Oh, I sat it in the oil there. That's why it's got oil all over the bottom of it. Okay, that makes sense. Fortunately, my lower board is oiled also, so it doesn't matter. Okay, so now I just got to clean this up and make my cake. But as far as this video, we have to let these rise, so we'll come back when they're ready to go and make them into baked rolls, and then we will see how well these bowls work. And if you're really hyper concerned with making sure these are all exactly the same, I would recommend doing like a tape measure and marking it precisely. This has a measurement on it, and it doesn't go to the end. So I was just using these as a kind of a guide to cut these at roughly 2 inches. Some of them are a little wider, some of them are a little narrower. It really doesn't matter all that much, unless it matters to you. Then, you know, like I said, if that matters to you and you want to be more precise, absolutely take a tape measure them out. But it really doesn't matter. It's not going to, like this one that's a little smaller and this one that are a little bigger, it might slightly have to cook longer on that one, but generally within a half an inch or so, these are all going to cook the same. They're all going to be fine. So that's one of those things that it comes down to your personal preference. The amount of time and effort you want to put into getting a precise cut, that's up to you. But we will come back when these are ready to go in. We'll take a look, see how they look, so you know what to look for, and then we'll get them in the oven, cook them up, and see what they look like. Like I said, I'm gonna top these with cheese. I'm gonna do that after they've risen, so they'll be, you know, they'll be as big as they're gonna get, because it'll just make it easier to get the cheese on top. So we'll top them, put them in the oven. I'm probably gonna have to do 2 rounds because my oven is not big enough for all of those. So the other option is to use 2 ovens, but we'll see. We'll get to it when we get there and see what we do. Okay, so we are back. Mom's cake's baked, and Bo's birthday cake, not for his birthday, but to have at Mom's birthday, cake is going in here. So you'll notice this table is not here because I needed to use my other oven here. But these have been rising for a while now. They're getting pretty puffy and look like they're just about right for moving on with. So you'll remember we have the cheese here, which is warming up and getting slightly less gooey, but not a whole lot. So we have like big pieces where it's just kind of sticking together in here. So this is going to be interesting. So we don't have to use every bit of this. We'll see how it kind of goes. So we'll just scoop some up here and try and keep it all on the top. We don't want a huge pile of it all around here. Some of it's going to run off onto the side and bake, and that's cool, but I wanted to at least mostly start on the top of the roll recipe. Now, by the real estate these are holding on my countertop here, you may have already reached the conclusion that these are not all going to fit in the oven. And you're absolutely right. So I'm just going to leave the rest of this in here. See what we can do here. He's going to sit on here. Not worth a damn. This rack was not meant for these bowls, I can tell you that much, because the spacing is just not very good for these to sit nicely on there. I don't have a sheet that's big enough to put 6 of these on that's small enough to fit in the oven. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and set this timer for 28 minutes. Okay, so we're back. The ovens are both going on rolls right now. So it smells really good in here. It smells like pizza oven, pizza restaurant pizzas. So these are going great guns in there. They've got about 7 minutes or so left. The other ones now, Bo's cake is done and out of here. They're in the other oven, which you can see without even opening it. And it's like modern technology, man. Okay, so that's pretty much just a quick update since nothing else is going on at the moment. So once those are done in the oven, these ones, we'll have to figure out how to get them out of here and onto the rack to cool off. See, this is cool now. I can put it away. Get the rack over here so I'm not trying to carry them across the way here. I'm not really sure how this is going to work without burning even more of my arm and hands. So I've kind of been playing with this. I might be able to use this to get them out and onto the rack. I don't know. The biggest issue is to fit the 9-inch pans, and to fit all 6 of those on there, the rack had to come out and go upside down. I've shown you that in a different video, I think. I'm not certain, but I think I did. Yeah, the first pizza roll one. I'm hoping it doesn't rise up too much and hit the top of the oven. I think I'm going to go ahead and do my oven sheet here. So I'm going to go ahead and take this out for a minute. And I'm going to take these off of here, because those ones really don't need to be in here. And I'm going to grab this one out of the way for right now, because I don't need it in there at the moment. Then I'm going to flip that rack upside down and put it on top of the bottom mount there, or bar, or whatever you call the things the racks slide on in an oven. If somebody knows, leave it in the comments, because I don't know what the hell you call it. The problem is I can't pull the rack out, because that piece that keeps it from falling out of the oven, it doesn't hook when the rack is in there upside down. So if I pull it out even just a little too far, it will just tip right out and dump everything on the floor and me, and it'll be a mess. And those, let me see if I can get a quick glimpse in there. If you see the rack, it barely touches the sides of the bowl, and they're really precariously sitting on there. And I think I'm going to take a quick look, because those look like they're getting close to done, even though I still have 5 minutes on the timer. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up for right now and take a good look in there and see if I need to pull those out and check them, or if we're good. Okay, so those look like they are ready to come out of there. It's been about 2 seconds since I stopped it the first time, so I've got 5 minutes left on the timer, but they're golden and they're smelling absolutely done. So I've got my rack right here. I'm going to set this here, and we're going to have this adventure together, because I don't know if this is going to work, or I'm about to burn the hell out of myself. So we'll see. So I can pull this rack out, but I have to be careful doing it. Is this gonna work? Oh crap. Oh. Oh, I've got one dripping cheese goo onto the oven. I'm glad I threw my smoke alarm across the driveway and broke it into pieces, because it would be screaming at me right now. official disclaimer, GT nor our delicious journey condone throwing your smoke detector and breaking it into pieces. We do, however, condone intelligent engineering of smoke detectors so they can learn the difference between cooking and actual fires, so that people stop having to throw them away to avoid a 5-minute interval of false alarms every time they do anything in the kitchen. Ooh, this one's in the hot spot, isn't it? Ooh. So if you were wondering about the hot spot I was talking about in the oven, you can see how brown that one is. And I can show you now because I don't need this to stay hot because I'm turning it off. You can come down, you can see absolutely nothing in there. You see where it's smoking right now because that one dripped some oil on that. That's why it would be screaming, because it thinks that is the house burning down. Back in the back, you can see those hoops on top. That's what keeps the rack from tipping out. But the burner is in the back. I don't know if I'll be able to get in there with this camera and see. But the way it heats, the flame is out here and the vent is right there. So that heat comes up right in the middle and then it's venting towards the back. That venting action carries the air current that way, which pulls the heat with it. So the back side of the oven is significantly warmer than the front. That's why normally I would rotate. But these were so precarious, as you saw. If maybe, I don't know if you caught it, but this part of the bowl is that wide. So it was basically sitting on this bar in the middle, and then these were just touching it enough to keep it from like totally dumping off the side. So I couldn't just pull the rack out because that one almost fell in when I started to move the rack in the first place. So something to keep in mind for the future. If I do these again in this oven, I'm going to have to figure out a sheet. I'm going to have to measure this rack, and even if I have to just get a piece of sheet metal. Hey, look, the pizza rolls are done. Even if I have to get like something like this and just a piece of sheet metal. Actually, this is too flimsy on its own to carry these in there, but I just realized I can use that in the next time. If I do these, I'll have to keep that in mind so that these can sit and they're stable. But as you can see, these are nice and golden. With the oil in there, they won't be adhered. So I'm going to set these over on the table, let them cool off for a bit. Then they should come right out of these bowls with the oil in there. And then the other ones are just going to bake up in there, and these are easier. I can keep an eye on them. Look at those puffing up. So beautiful. Look at this one right here. That's amazingly gorgeous right there. And honestly, I'll probably do that oven for these in the future because it's just easier to work with. This rack, you can see how much closer together the bars are, and that means it's sitting on 3 of them, not on one. And as you can imagine, a circle sitting on one point in the middle of the circle is not very stable, and it's a lot, I mean, I burned myself, but only once putting them in there versus 4 times putting them in that one. So that oven is probably going to be the better option for making these in the future. If I do use this one, now I know I can use that. So that's going to be the wrap up for the pizza rolls. So I'll probably, like I said, I'll put this footage and the footage from the first version somewhat together. And so this is version 2. I'm probably going to like this better because, like I said, trying to get these apart in the pan without destroying them was a bit of a challenge, versus here, once these are cool, they'll come right off and you'll have a single serving per bowl. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. Hope that you try making these. They were really good last time. They just needed a little tweak, and I think they're gonna hit the goalpost on this one. And if these work out as well as I imagine they will, and I can see sauce in there, so it didn't just totally go away into the bread like it did last time. So at this point, next time I make them, I can experiment with more fillings. Pretty much anything you would put on a pizza, you should be able to put in here within reason. If you get like a lot of toppings and put them in here, you're going to throw off your ability to cook it through properly. So I would kind of stay to the minimal side, but I mean, you could do like bell peppers and black olives and pepperoni, stuff like that shouldn't be a problem. Wet stuff, if you like pineapple on your pizza, and I'm not going to say it's right, I'm not going to say it's wrong. I put it on mine. If you don't like it, hey, that's fine. Everybody's different. But I wouldn't put it in these because it is so wet that it would make the dough gummy. If you want to put it in there, you might try like a dried pineapples, but I don't know. I'll have to experiment with that and see. Yeah, I think these are going to work out just like this, and we can start playing with different versions of this. Okay, and that gave me vertigo. I am so sorry. That probably messed with you guys just as bad as it did me. Anyway, that's going to take a few minutes. I'm not going to like stand here 10 minutes waiting for it. So I'll throw an update in there if this is like a lower temperature, because I have a sneaking suspicion that this is not accurate. And what we're going to find is when this gets settled, it's probably going to be like 325. That might be something I need to take note of. So if I need to turn the temperature down on this, I can adjust that in the recipe. So we will see what we get on there. Anyway, hopefully you'll give these a try. These are absolutely delicious, and I have a feeling these ones are only going to be a lot better than the last ones, which were amazing as they were. So give them a try. They're a little bit of work, but they're not much more work than making a fresh pizza from scratch. Maybe an extra 5 minutes, and that's really just slicing them into the rolls. And it's a lot more fun. I mean, these are great for parties, for families. Kids like these, and it's good for like throwing it in your lunch and taking it with you. They're good. They're pizza. They're just pizza in a different form. So hopefully you'll give them a try. Hopefully you'll love them. Hopefully you liked the video. Hopefully I can get a like from you down below. Hopefully you'll subscribe if you haven't already. Share this video with someone you know that loves pizza. Let's get one more look. That thing is gorgeous. I mean, that is my favorite roll out of the whole batch. That one right there in front. So anyway, hopefully we'll see you next time. We've got all kinds of things on the list to come. These are all done, but we've got some good things coming in the near future here. So hopefully we'll see you then. Thanks for watching.